Just want to introduce myself. I'm Amanda Nicklas, and I've been a member here at Floris for about 4.5 years. I have 3 young kids, and we're going to talk today about self-care for the overstressed. The objectives of this talk, and this is just kind of so we kind of have a guide, is to be able to understand the harmful effects of chronic stress on your health, to understand ways to combat that stress, and identify methods for you to personally overcome the stress in your life. And so I didn't want to introduce myself too much earlier because I wanted to get to this slide. And so this is me and my kids. I know a lot of you guys know my kids. And so my life is pretty stressful. I've got those 3 young kiddos. I'm getting my master's degree. And so that's my life. I just want to talk a little bit about why we're here. So I'm getting my master's degree as a nurse and in nurse education. So there's lots of options when you get your master's degree, nurse practitioner or nurse midwife. I'm choosing nurse education because I really believe in educating people on their health as well as educating the next generation of nurses. So part of that practicum is to do a community service type practicum event, and so I chose Floris so that I could help with the members of our church and give them some health information. Stress is really prevalent in Northern Virginia, so I chose stress management as this topic just because I know that it can apply to everybody in our church. As far as my nursing career goes, I graduated in 2005 from Seattle Pacific University. I worked as a labor and delivery nurse before joining the Navy in 2008, and that's my Navy picture. I was in the Navy Nurse Corps for 3 years, and once I started having kids, decided to leave the Navy so that I could focus on my family, and I now currently work part-time while getting my master's degree and then raising the 3 kids. So that's my life in a nutshell and kind of why we're here and what we're doing and why a nurse is talking at church about things that aren't related to spirituality at all, even though our social and mental health is an important part of our life. So let's first talk about what stress can do to your body. And I'm going to skip over the head part because I think that is a large portion of what stress can do. But chronic stress can cause issues in the skin, like acne. It can cause issues with your joints and muscles, like aches and pain, tension. It can lower your bone density. Looking at your heart, it can increase your blood pressure, increase your heart rate, cause higher cholesterol and instances of heart attack. With your stomach, it can cause stomach cramps, reflux, nausea, weight fluctuations. And your pancreas, it can be a precursor to diabetes. Looking at your intestines, it can cause digestive issues like an upset stomach. Looking at reproductive issues, it can reduce sex drive, lower sperm count, and cause fertility issues as well as increased pain during periods for women. In your overall immune system, it can reduce the ability to battle and recover from illness. And that's just kind of like the stress response that you get from that fight or flight response when you're experiencing stress. And all of that also combines into all those issues with your head. So issues with mood, anger, depression, irritability, sadness, a lack of energy, swings in appetite, either over appetite or under appetite, issues with concentration and sleeping issues, including mental health issues like anxiety disorders and panic attacks. So stress is normal, but when we don't stop stress when it starts, then the chronic stress can lead to a lot of these issues. So while stress occurs in our life in many ways, it's allowing it to continue that can cause those problems. So some of these issues that cause stress can be short-term issues, things that are over and done with really quickly, and some of them are long-term issues. So like deadlines at work, an overflowing inbox, money issues, relationship conflicts, job issues, long commutes, rushed mornings, major life changes, and health issues. I mean, I will admit that I experienced a little bit of stress preparing for tonight. And just like knowing that that response is normal, that increased heart rate and that fight or flight response where you get sweaty and you like are ready to go, that gives you energy. And when you're public speaking, it's beneficial in a way that it's going to allow me to stand up here and not be too quiet, but it also allows me to be prepared. But if I were to allow that to continue to be an issue, if I had been worried about it for a week, then some of those issues on the previous slide could affect my health long term. So when you look at continuing deadlines at work that you're never meeting and a boss that's always getting on you about deadlines, that increased stress that you're not managing and you allow to manifest into those other symptoms is where the problem occurs. So looking at ways to combat stress. So I'm going to caveat this with saying that this list is not all extensive. The things I'm going to talk about I've chosen because I think that they're the easiest ways for us to make changes in our life and the things that it will be easiest to make small steps to make that lifestyle change. Just like when you're going to work towards better health with your diet, you're going to make small changes here and there to be overall successful. It's not a short-term journey, it's a long-term journey. And I think that the things that we're going to talk about today fall under that same kind of health decision and lifestyle change for it to be a long-term, like step-by-step. So you don't think as I'm talking, you're thinking this lady's crazy, there's no way that I can do any of this, and so I'm not going to do any of it. Think about the ways that you can impact your life and make small changes to improve your things. So again, looking at your triggers and what things you can do. Now, I know sometimes we can't just quit our jobs because then we wouldn't have money and that would cause more stress. But there are some times if you're overcommitted to be able to step back and say, okay, I've got these 5 things and they all cause me stress. Is there a way that I can eliminate one of them to reduce my stress? That's the easiest way. So just think about what are your triggers, what causes you the most stress, and try to see if those things can be removed or reduced in your life before you look at some of the ways to manage that. So the first one is sleep hygiene. We are a society that gets no sleep. And oddly enough, stress causes insomnia, which then exacerbates the stress, which then causes more of those health issues. So while the health issues aren't all caused strictly by stress, stress increases those health issues, and sleep is part of that. So some suggestions on improving your sleep hygiene include to get up when you get up. So no snooze buttons. I know that in our household, snooze buttons are really handy, and when you're not always woken up of your own means and by children, it's hard to get up when you get up. But that's something that I know I want to work on, is just waking up naturally, and then once you're up, just staying up. Getting rid of the blue lights for at least 30 minutes before your bed will help you to fall asleep faster. So that's those blue screens, iPads, cell phones, TVs, computers, all the things that we use to live our lives. If you can do like a 30-minute tech fast right before you go to sleep, those will help you fall asleep quicker. Using your bed only for sleeping. I know we've heard this one before. Don't watch TV in bed, don't read in bed, don't eat in bed. Use your bed just for sleeping, and those will help your body to realize that sleeping or your bed is just for sleeping, so that when you get to bed, that shut-off mechanism happens really quickly. And then the hard one, I think, for a lot of us is no eating for 2 hours prior. I know that I enjoy an evening snack, but just trying to figure out that just is a issue with your body, and allowing your digestive system to kind of calm down allows you to fall asleep a little bit quicker too, with the way that your hormones regulate after eating. A few other tips that aren't listed on here is if you nap in the afternoon and then you have a hard time going to sleep later on, then naps need to be cut out. But I know some people, a nap is an important part of their sleep debt. I know for me it is, because I get all my sleep whenever I can. So I know I can nap and fall asleep 2 hours later, no problem. But for some people, they get so tired that they take that afternoon nap, and then after the nap, then they can't go to bed that night, and then they end up staying up with the insomnia later on. So all of those things, when we get enough sleep, that will help with your stress reduction. One of the suggestions in some of the studies is to find what your natural sleep cycle is. And if you are not a night shift nurse and you can actually like go to bed around the same time every night, see how you feel. If you go to bed at 10 and wake up at 6 and you still feel tired, see what happens if you go to bed at 9:30 or 9. Or if you go to bed at 11 and you wake up at 6 and you feel fine, then that can be a natural amount of sleep for you. So they say, the average person is 6 to 9 hours. You have to figure out where you fit in that sleep cycle to get the amount of rest that you need for your body and for your health. And the other thing is circadian rhythms. And there's a lot of information on circadian rhythms, and you'll hear people that talk about, in the winter they get that seasonal affective disorder, so they get those lights to kind of get that natural sunlight. A lot of that has to do with how that light enters our brains, which is through our eyes. So you can use one of those full spectrum lights to get that 10 to 20 minutes of light, but if you also go outside and get that natural light for 10 to 20 minutes, that's just how your body is able to orient itself to the circadian rhythms of the sun, and it kind of regulates your hormones. And that's without your sunglasses, because the sunglasses kind of provide a filter. And if you think about the way that we live our lives today, we spend a lot of time indoors, whereas in the past we spent a lot more time outdoors when we were farming or getting our food or doing all the work that was happening outside of the home. It was partially outside, so those rhythms were very natural. We live a lot of our lives inside cars, inside buildings, inside our houses, and so we aren't able to set our bodies to that natural rhythm. So getting out in the sunlight for at least that 10 to 20 minutes a day without your sunglasses will help kind of set your body into that natural rhythm. And think about how you feel when it hits summer and the sun starts coming out. You sit outside, you're like, oh, this feels so good. And then later in the day, you feel like you did something and you feel accomplished or rested. It's likely due to that fact that your circadian rhythms are kind of getting back into sync. And that can affect your natural rhythms in your brain. So mood. So changing your mood to reflect a more optimistic outlook has been shown to reduce stress. So if you walk into a circumstance and you say, this is a really stressful circumstance, the more you say it, the more stressed you're going to feel, and the more you're going to continue to feel that stress. So one of the books that I listed in your handout talks about Learned Optimism by Martin Seligman, and he actually kind of developed this ABCDE of optimism. And the way that this kind of works is going from the negative attitude to the positive attitude to create that optimism and kind of that fake it till you make it mentality of, if I feel better about the situation, I'm going to feel better about the situation. So how this works is you look at the adverse situation, what are your beliefs about the situation, consequences of those beliefs, and then you're going to dispute and distract on those beliefs, and then the energization is what happens when you stop those negative thoughts. So an example of this would be, let's talk about a diet. Let's say, okay, I'm going to start a diet tomorrow, and I'm going to do so great, and I'm not going to quit. Well, you walk into day 2 of your diet, and you eat a chocolate bar, and you're like, oh, I ate a chocolate bar. So your adverse situation, you ate the chocolate bar. Your beliefs, I've blown the diet. Darn it, this diet's not going to work. I'm just going to be heavy forever. I'm never going to be healthy. I'm never going to be able to do this diet. Well, the consequences of those beliefs, well, what happens if you don't keep on with the diet? So if I don't keep on with this diet, then I'm going to get diabetes, and I'm never going to be healthy, and, ooh, fun lights. And you're going to get all these negative, like, I'm just going to have high blood sugar, and I'm not going to be able to do this the way that I want to do it. And then you get to this is where you start changing, where you dispute and distract. How are we going to dispute? Well, that's not really true. Just because I had one failed moment in my diet doesn't mean that my diet's over. It means that tomorrow, I'm going to do better. I'm going to not eat the chocolate bar tomorrow. And I'm not going to get diabetes from eating one chocolate bar. I'm not going to be unhealthy for the rest of my life because I had one chocolate bar today. What am I going to do to make it better? So then you start that positive thinking, which leads you to being like, okay, I can do this tomorrow. I stopped that thought. I'm not going to get diabetes. I'm going to change my health. And then you change your attitude about the situation. I've kind of used this without realizing it. In some situations at work, I've had some really stressful things at work happen with management and increased requirements. And I've kind of just had to change my attitude, like, from I just want to leave my job to now, okay, I can be positive about my job. Like, I like the people I work with. I like the people that I serve. I really like, I like the paycheck that comes out, like all these positive things. And I've felt a lot better being at work now than I have in the past few months. So as hard as it is to think about changing your mood, this is one of the ways to like reduce your stress immediately. And that's stopping your thoughts. Is a really big one. When you start thinking about being stressed, if you can stop yourself and say, okay, I'm feeling stressed. Why am I feeling stressed? Let's stop those thoughts. And it can kind of stop that like thought process that leads to the increased stress. One of the suggestions I saw online was actually wearing a rubber band to even like use a physical stopping, like to snap the rubber band on your wrist, like stop this thought. If you really need a reminder and you find yourself being stressed, you could even like print a stop sign and put that up or pull it out of your wallet and say, okay, I'm going to stop this thought. So that's one other way to kind of like physically remember to change your mood. One of the biggest suggestions is finding time for you. So you're looking at hobbies, whatever that hobby might be, whether it's something arts and crafts wise, if you're somebody that likes to create with your hands, finding the time for that, gardening, listening to music, going for walks, reading, coloring books, like that's a really big thing is the coloring books. It's just all of that, finding time for yourself to really remove yourself from all of the stress. I think a big part of the stressfulness that we feel in our society today and in Northern Virginia is just being overscheduled and feeling like you have to go from here to there to over there and then back to there and then back to here to get your kids back, and your every single minute is scheduled. If you can allow yourself to find that few minutes to take time for yourself. I've been trying to do a little bit of like art journaling myself in my Bible, just to give myself that moment of, the world isn't going to come to an end if I take 15 minutes to do this or to read in my book instead of doing my homework. I do that a lot, like where I find, okay, I'm going to take 10 or 15 minutes for me, and then I'm going to move on, and then I can be better for everybody else that needs me when I take that time for myself. So that's whatever your hobby is, whatever it might be, if you can allow yourself that 15 minutes a day, 30 minutes a week, will make you feel a lot less stressed. And then other habits, so looking at hobbies, but looking at habits, like looking at a gratitude journal, like every day, at the beginning of your day or the end of your day, what are 3 things that I'm grateful for? That's again like that whole changing your mood and your thought process, but again, what 3 things am I grateful for today? And if you write them down, it's even better. It's like that multi-sensory, by thinking it and writing it down, will help with just changing your attitude and your mood. And I know that we've talked a lot about this in church, about just changing your mood about things and your attitude about things, but this is something that is mentioned in many posts about stress, is being grateful and changing your attitude about that. Of course, we talk about prayer a lot in church, and prayer is an important part of not just our spiritual faith, but it's also that peaceful time where you're able to sit and think and pray and talk with God. But that can also be a habit. So again, something that we all strive to do, but maybe aren't the best at doing, with like setting aside that quiet time to pray. That will help with reducing your stress as well. One of the biggest things I found is that they're finding the use of technology is increasing the rates of depression in younger adults, is where they've been doing the studies. The use of like technology and social media sites is increasing our wants and decreasing the amount of face time we have with people, and as a result, it's increasing our stress and mental illnesses and other things. So I've been listening to a few different podcasts and people online that talk about doing a tech fast of some amount of time, and whether it's, okay, for the first 30 minutes of the day, I'm not going to look at my phone. I'm going to get up, I'm going to have my cup of coffee, I'm going to take my shower, I'm not going to look at my phone. Or the last 30 minutes of the day, or during lunch, I'm not going to look at my phone. It doesn't have to be a 24-hour fast from your technology devices, but I am starting to realize that I do feel more stressed when I look at my phone. Why do I feel that need to go on Facebook and see if anybody's posted something new in the last 5 minutes? I just was on it. So I've been trying to put my phone down more. I've been trying to talk to people more when I am with my kids. I try to put my phone down when they say, "Mommy, look at this." I try to put my phone down and then look. Of course, when you're around them all day, you can't always do that, but I'm definitely noticing the amount of technology in our house is increasing, and that when I take a step away from that, I feel a lot better. I've even in the evenings had gone from reading to watching TV, and now I'm trying to go back to reading because I do feel a lot more calm and a lot more rested and ready for bed when I am reading a book as opposed to watching a television show. And here's where you might think I'm crazy, is meditation and mindfulness exercises. Really, meditation kind of goes along with the prayer that we do, and taking that quiet time. And you might think, okay, well, we're not Buddhists. Why are we talking about meditation? It really is just that ability to clear your mind, give yourself that 10 minutes. And there's a lot of guided meditation type exercises that I've found online that go for as little as 10 minutes a day. And if you can do it at the beginning of the day or the end of the day, any of those times will help you to just kind of clear your mind and reduce your heart rate. And there's a lot of science behind the theta waves in your brain and how that affects your stress, but I don't even fully understand how all those brain waves work. But I do know that when I take my own slow, deep breaths, that I can feel calm and rested. So in just a minute, we're actually going to do a 10-minute meditation exercise that's guided with this link. But some of the other things that I've learned over the past few years, Barbara Miner talked to our MOPS group about breath prayers, when you're really stressed, just to sit there and use a short thing like God is love, God is love. You can breathe it in and breathe it out, or I am calm, I'm not going to yell, any of those things that you can do as a breath prayer just to calm yourself in those moments of stress. So with that, I think we're going to do this meditation exercise. And I'll admit that I haven't done the full 10 minutes, and we'll see if we make it 10 minutes. But the biggest thing about meditation exercises is kind of sitting relaxed with your hands in your lap. If you're good at cross legs, which I don't think most of us are when we're not kids, you see people with the cross legs and this, but if you just kind of rest your hands. So that's just kind of one example of meditation, something that when I went to that seminar, the speaker did, and I really had no idea that was kind of just that being mindful of the sensations that are going on and trying to control your thoughts. And I can see the benefit of just focusing on your breathing, and how even that few minutes that we did, how it makes me feel. And I know that kind of daily occurrence of practicing that meditation, and it could go along with prayer, how that could reduce your overall stress as well. There's actually another book that I listed there is 10% Happier, which is a story by Dan Harris, who was a news anchor in Iraq and Afghanistan, and he had a televised panic attack, and he started meditation even though he thought it was a little woo-woo psychology, and found that he was doing it and feeling so much better that somebody asked him, "Why are you doing that? You're meditating? That's crazy." He goes, "Well, I figure if it makes me 10% happier, that it can't hurt." And so that's kind of why the name of his book. But he's got some guided meditations on on a website called 10% Happier. I listed that one as Sam Harris, even Harris names are two different people, but that was I think 3/4 of the way through that 9 or 10 minute meditation. But there's lots of resources, there's lots of apps that go through some of the guided meditation if that's something that you're interested in. I know that's something I'm planning on implementing at least a short 5 to 10 minutes every day. I'd like to try to start. One of the other resources on the handout is a TED Talk by Kelly McGonigal, and she talks about making stress your friend, about, like, again, another mind shift change on what stress does, and how, stress is a normal response, but that we can control it and use it for good, and then to control the negative aspects of stress.